Southern California is a car guy's playground. We all know this, and with roads behind us like this, how can you not think, I want a fantastic handling car so I can really enjoy every bit of these roads? Now today, I'm going to tell you a tale of two Lotuses. One of them has been the gold standard for lightweight sports car performance for the last 10 years or so. The Elise. We know it, we love it, and it's, what's not to like, really? But before that, if you thought Lotus, what you were really thinking of was this. And this is the Esprit. 3,000 pounds, 350 horsepower out of a twin turbocharged V8. Today we're going to take both these cars out in this amazing canyon and find out what handling is really about. We're driving a 2000 Lotus Esprit V8. It's the final version of this car. It's the fastest it ever went. It's the most expensive it ever cost. And new, this car was right around $100,000. Now the good news is, despite its small size, I can actually fit in this car quite well. And the fact that it has a pop-up glass roof means I get an extra 2 inches of headroom, which really does allow the car to be much more comfortable for someone of my size. It has an in-house built-in design, twin-turbo, 3.5-liter V8, makes 350 horsepower, which doesn't sound like much in 2010, but at the time it had the highest output per liter of any V8 on the market. Twin turbos usually help with that. And what I love about this engine is it strikes such a nice audio balance in between small-bore V8 wail and turbo diverter valve noise. It is really, really fantastic. Just listen to this. Woo! This car was capable of 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds because it weighs just under 3,000 pounds. About that 350 horsepower V8, Lotus actually says that the engine is easily capable of 500 horsepower, but the Achilles heel of this car is the Renault-sourced gearbox, which unfortunately required them to detune the engine. It also means, and John, the owner of the car, told me this, that you really can't launch this car at all. You have to be careful in the first 2 gears because the transmission is very fragile. Not really what you want to hear about a $100,000 car, but it's the way it goes with British sports cars. There's always something. The styling of the Esprit is the very definition of the word classic. The original version was designed by Giorgetto Gugaro, one of the pioneers of the wedge-shaped sports car design in the 70s. And it was so good, oh, listen to that. It was so good that the design has been nearly unchanged. I mean, the shape, like the 911, is still the same. Of course, they've rounded it off, they've added a wing for some downforce, they've added bigger wheels, and of course a bigger engine. But the overall shape is absolutely, unmistakably a Lotus Esprit. As it is with many British cars, there are a few quirks. For instance, I gotta drive with the windows down because the air conditioning isn't exactly functioning right now. And the gas pedal is the heaviest gas pedal I've ever felt. Now, after driving the car for an hour or so, I've managed to figure out the heel towing technique, but for a while, I was actually having some trouble because I wasn't used to the fact that the gas pedal is much heavier than the brake pedal. It's a strange feeling to get used to, but after you drive the car for a little bit, it's not so bad. Although the engine was designed and built in-house by Lotus, there are quite a few other bits that weren't. For instance, this horrific Pontiac Firebird steering wheel, the GM door pulls and kind of average quality leather, of course generic parts bin buttons and stuff for the windows, but the important bits built by Lotus. They sold about 10,000 of these cars over its whole 30-year run, and only 600 total of the version we're driving, of which only 300 are in the US, so this is quite a rare car. I gotta admit, I really like driving this car. It's really fun to drive, it's really fun to rev out and corner carve. But I think what we should do now is hop in the Elise and see how much different that car feels from a Lotus from 10 years ago. Now, Colin Chapman was all about lightness, keeping the cars light. And I think one of his best strategies in keeping the Elise light was by limiting the size of the driver. If you are over a certain height or weight, you should not be driving this car. And I'm right on the edge of what is acceptable. Did I say on the edge? I meant over the edge of what is acceptable. I'm pretty sure I'm too big for this thing. After driving that Esprit around for an hour, this thing feels like a go-kart. 180 horsepower, Toyota 4-cylinder engine, curb weight of 1,900 pounds, Targa roof, direct steering because there is no power steering, and the most minimalist car available on the market that's legal for road use. This is Lotus. This is what Lotus is all about. And this is what the future of Lotus is going forward. Lightweight, small engines, minimal interior, just what you need to get the absolute most out of the driving experience. The gas pedal obviously doesn't have the same problems the Esprit have with being hard to push. Everything is nice and easy. Engine loves to rev. The irony of the Esprit versus the Elise is that in the Esprit, they used a Lotus engine, Lotus running gear, but they took little bits and pieces off of other cars. The Elise, all this other stuff is just Lotus, but the engine's out of a Toyota. So say what you will about that, but I think that's the right move, because what that means is you can just beat the snot out of this car constantly for hundreds of thousands of miles, and you've got Toyota engine reliability. Ask anyone about a Lotus from the past 30 years, and what they'll tell you is it's unreliable. The Elise, the Exige, these cars break that mold. First of all, there's very little to break. There's nothing in here other than an engine, a gearbox, some pedals, and a steering wheel. Nothing to go wrong. Make that a Toyota engine, and we are in good shape for years of happy motoring. Everything about the Elise says responsive. The brakes are responsive, the steering's responsive, the shifter's responsive. The noise that comes out of this thing, listen to this. Oh yeah, you get valve timing kicks in there at 6,000 RPM. From that car to this car, what's amazing is they've reduced the weight, they've reduced the engine size, they've reduced everything about the car except the performance. The performance of this car with 180 horsepower is very nearly as quick as that Esprit with 350 horsepower. Because this car weighs almost 1,100 pounds less. And they say you can add power if you want to make a car go faster in the straight line. But Colin Chapman always said that if you want to make a car do everything better, the only way to do it is to subtract weight. Enter the Elise. There are, of course, a few downsides to this car. Sound dampening? None of that. This thing is noisy at any speed. But if you want maximum performance, you got to make sacrifices somewhere. Also, interior space. Not so much of it. Depending on what size you are, that may matter or not. But if this car has a roof on it, I can't drive it, which means sunshine only for me. If you like listening to music, well, you're out of luck. If you like cruising down the boulevard or maybe going shopping for anything, you are out of luck. This car is not for you. But if your goal is to smile your way through a canyon road on a beautiful day in California, there is almost no other option. All right, so we've driven these two cars in the canyons, and it's time to decide if there's a winner. Is the twin-turbo Esprit a better car? It's got more power, it's got more prestige, and honestly, I think it looks cooler. Or are you into the Colin Chapman philosophy of less is more with the Elise? It's newer, it's lighter, it's just as fast. I don't know. I think you could be into either, and the truth is, if you're looking at used cars, you can get either of these cars for about the same money. That leaves the choice completely up to you. So I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment. Which of these two awesome cars would you choose if you had the money to spend? I'm Matt Farah, this is The Smoking Tire, and we will see you guys next week.